morning and welcome back to Rising. It is Tuesday morning and we've got a great show for you today. Lindsey Granger back with us after your lengthy time at sea.
Yes, I went to Qatar, so I got a chance to experience and see what's happening in that country. I'm working with News Nation as well, and we're doing a docuseries about the country. We really got to spend time at all the national museums, see what their history is all about. It's fascinating how they built up a city that rivals some of the top architecture in the world in like 30 years.
Very cool.
But it's going to be interesting because obviously there's a lot that we talk about with Qatar. Yes. They gave President Trump a jet that was worth a lot of money, and they're trying to strengthen their relationship with the U.S. So I guess we're going to see from those conversations the special that they edit, and you got to wait to watch it on December 14th.
I look forward to that. Can't wait to see it.
Coming up on Rising, Democrats are sounding the alarm after President Trump said he would sell an F-35 jet to Saudi Arabia.
Plus, Ben Shapiro is blasting Marjorie Taylor Greene over her spat with President Trump and her insistence that the Epstein files get released.
And on a lighter note, billionaire Bill Ackman is getting roasted for his unusual pickup line for young men. But first, of course, back and ready for this, Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, President Donald Trump still has 3 more years left in his term, but the battle to succeed him as leader of the Republican Party is already getting underway, even though Vice President J.D. Vance, the designated successor to Trump, will have a massive and likely decisive advantage in any such contest. Even so, Senator Ted Cruz is signaling that he may make a go of it. Axios reported yesterday that Cruz is laying the groundwork for a 2028 presidential bid by leaning into his feud with Tucker Carlson, by poking fun at Carlson's isolationist foreign policy views, accusing him of anti-Semitism and more. Cruz is putting himself on a collision course with Vice President Vance. That's according to Axios. Now, I think there's some truth to that. Cruz's feud with Tucker is, in some sense, a proxy war with Vance, who is staunchly aligned with Carlson on foreign policy and inclined to defend him. In fact, Vance recently spoke up on X to denounce Sloan Rashmuth, a journalist and self-described Zionist, who attacked Carlson's brother Buckley Carlson for signaling some alignment with Nick Fuentes, the controversial Carlson podcast guest known for espousing anti-Semitic views. Rashmuth questioned whether Tucker Carlson's son, who's also named Buckley, by the way, shared the views of his uncle. The younger Buckley works in Vance's office, so Vance spoke up to defend him, writing on X, Sloan Rashmuth is a journalist who has decided to obsessively attack a staffer in his 20s because she doesn't like the views of his father. Every time I see a public attack on Buckley, it's a complete lie. And fair enough, Vance is right here. It's fine to criticize Tucker or Tucker's brother, and it's fine to criticize young Buckley if he actually says something you dislike. But this kind of guilt by association tactic is off-putting to everyone. In fact, this kind of thing is the exact sort of overreach that is clearly driving some people into the arms of the more extreme fringes of Fuentes-type individuals. If you want to make Fuentes seem more appealing, then this is exactly the type of tactic to use. Smear anyone who platforms him as a Nazi, collaborator, and anti-Semite, attack their family members, and then denounce the family members who refuse to denounce their parents, children, or siblings. Well, this is cancel culture craziness, and it was obvious to conservatives that it was bad when the left was doing it. In fact, it led the left to self-cannibalize and become far less effective and coherent as a political movement. Today, we should recognize that the conservative movement and the Republican Party, which are now synonymous with MAGA and American First, stands at something of a crossroads. Trump, through his sheer force of will, has kept the coalition together for nearly a decade. But Trump won't be around forever, and factions are emerging. These factions are the hawkish and interventionist wings, led by people like Ted Cruz and Ben Shapiro. Then there's my own tech libertarian faction, which is led by Elon Musk, Rand Paul, and Thomas Massie. Finally, there are the populists, which have a lot of popular appeal among the MAGA base, true to their name, but also contain a few different factions. Vance, for instance, is clearly a leading populist, but this rising Fuentes fringe, they actually despise Vance. They think he's an insincere populist, and because they are racist, they don't like that he's married to an Indian woman. Then there are people like Laura Loomer and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are both populists, though Loomer is closer to the interventionist faction and MTG is closer to the libertarian faction. As a result, those two women hate each other, and Loomer is currently doing everything she can to destroy MTG. So that's a long way of saying, promising really, that the GOP might look very different 3 years from now. And while it's likely, extremely likely, that Vance is the next GOP standard bearer, it's not yet clear which ideological faction will control MAGA. But Whichever faction does win, it's going to have to make peace with two important realities. First, the foreign policy consensus has forever shifted toward non-interventionism. That doesn't mean non-interventionists are going to win every foreign policy battle. It only means that there's no going back to the Bush era nation building and all of that kind of thing. Second, the GOP is going to have to do a better job of challenging the actual racists and anti-Semites in their midst. That doesn't mean relentlessly picking battles with friends and allies, but it does mean exercising a bit more discipline about who speaks on MAGA's behalf. And it means engaging and combating the ideas of Nicholas Fuentes.
I thought this was a really solid breakdown of like all the different things within the party. I think that you have a very gracious perspective when it comes down to the infighting within MAGA and within what.
Well, I enjoy spectating it.
Well, but I mean, I feel like it also, for many people, if it was happening under anyone else, I feel like that wasn't President Trump, it would be like, this party is in complete disarray. What does it want? What are you doing? What are the mission statements? Because like you said, Trump does what he wants. So what does the party look like after President Trump? I mean, there's actual fighting about almost every step of the way, starting with tariffs, going down to what's going on in Venezuela, coming on to Epstein, and then just a straight up beef with Marjorie Taylor Greene now. He's like, this person who supported me, I don't support her in any way. There's Indiana redistricting. They can't even get it right. Trump is personally attacking a lot of lawmakers that won't say they want to redistrict when most of the country thinks that we should not be doing that anyway as a political gotcha move, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. So there's so much within the party. And then there's also the obvious and very large step away from the historical stance of the Republican Party, which is to be fiscally conservative, which we know that by the big, beautiful bill and other actions the president has taken, speaking of those tariffs, is slowly pulling the conservative party away from what it traditionally stood for with all these older people, like you always reference, in government, that said that they fought for that for the last 2 decades. So how do you then move forward from this and figure out what the party looks like without a figure like Trump? And yes, he can be around and he can campaign for people, but when he's not actually on the ballot, it might actually hurt people just because he's around, because they know that he can't actually do anything in a leadership role besides maybe advise.
Right.
So, I think that you have a lenient view, but if it was on the Democrat side, you would be like, this is a show. A blank show.
Well, Democrats are doing their own version of this, with one faction wanting the party to move toward a wholesale embrace of socialism and another faction wanting more moderation, more centrism. I mean, see the debate. Bill Maher was airing this debate over the weekend between Abigail Spanberger, prevailing in Virginia, someone who once said that she doesn't want to hear Democrats say the word socialism ever again, on one side. On the other side, Zohran Mamdani, a socialist, actually winning mayor of New York. So Democrats are going to have a kind of slightly different, maybe less acrimonious, maybe more, I don't know, version of this debate. And I think debate is good. I'm not against it. No one needs to march in lockstep to whatever party establishment leadership decides. That would not be a good idea. So we're going to spend the next couple years hashing it out, and we're going to find out what is the agenda for the next Republican leader. That's presumably J.D. Vance. I think it's highly likely to be J.D. Vance. But what set of ideas he associates himself with is a little bit still up for grabs.
I think there has to be some clear pillars of the party, right? And even for Democrats, I say the same thing. Like, what are the actual pillars that the party does not sway away from?
We hate Trump. That's their pillar.
Okay, I'm not talking about Democrats, though. Yeah. We're breaking down.
We love Trump. That's Republicans.
But that's what I mean. Like, what are the pillars past Trump? Because there lies the confusion. I think that people.
10 years of Trump being the pillars.
But now, what happens, because there were years and years and decades of consistent pillars that existed prior to Trump that all went out the window because Trump was something new, something that understood business, something that was a new wave of leadership. Some of those ways not fully fulfilled, some fulfilled in a totally different way that looked more democratic, like policy-wise, than any other historical Republican. So that's what the soul searching has to do with, because people may not want a J.D. Vance who's so closely aligned with President Trump to be up next, because they may have fatigue from this, like we saw in the election that Trump lost against Joe Biden. So I think we're going to see either they're going to respond to it and say more of Trump allies or completely something different.
Well, next up, Ben Shapiro is firing back at MTG after her social media spat with the president, which took place over the weekend. We'll be right back to discuss that. Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro isn't buying Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's story after she and the president got into it on social media over the weekend.
Now, Shapiro criticized Greene's recent media blitz, speaking out against fellow Republicans, arguing that the mainstream media was embracing her now that she's turned on Trump. Take a listen.
Marjorie Taylor Greene has been attempting to run essentially her own knockoff version, her Temu version of MAGA. She's been out retailing it to The View. She's been out retailing it to CNN and MSNBC. You know, the Jewish space lady. That lady is the hot new thing with regard to legacy media. They now have strange new respect for Marjorie Taylor Greene because she has decided that she is going to attack Trump full time.
Shapiro went on to attack MTG for allegedly spreading conspiracy theories that Epstein was tied to Israeli intelligence. I'm not sure that's a conspiracy theory, and that Trump's loyalty to Israel is the reason the administration has been so slow to release the files. Take a look.
She's just putting that out there. No evidence whatsoever because she doesn't like Israel and also because she has some peculiar views, shall we say, about Jews. The reason why they're focused on Epstein. Okay, let's be clear about this. It is not because of Epstein. The Epstein files have been out there. They've been in the possession. None of these people were screaming bloody murder about the Epstein files when Joe Biden was president of the United States. President Trump comes on the scene, doesn't do the foreign policy they want, and suddenly they start screaming at the top of their lungs about the Epstein files.
Meanwhile, the House is expected to meet today to vote on a bill that would force the DOJ to release the Epstein files. Over the weekend, President Trump posted on social media urging representatives to vote for the bill despite months-long effort to block the release of the files, and Trump even took it a step further yesterday.
I'm all for it. You know, we've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much because, honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. And I don't want to take it away from really the greatness of what the Republican Party has accomplished over the last period of time.
Now, despite that, the outlook for the bill in the Senate is unclear. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has not indicated if he would even bring the bill to the floor for a vote if it passes the House. This was a 180 that I saw while I was traveling, obviously on the tail end. But, for the president to finally just say, let's release the files, it's kind of just like, what took so long? Like, what would be the point? And then if you waited this long, obviously people are going to have raised an eyebrow to say, well, why did you wait this long when half of your party was calling for this to begin with? And then now you say because Democrats jumped on board, then it became a hoax. But we had victims and survivors at the Capitol pleading their case. And then everyone understands that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted felon. People still want information beyond that 30,000 pages of documents that's been released. Right. They want the Treasury files and everything that the Department of Justice has access to. Also, the fact that President Trump could greenlight the Department of Justice releasing many more files without putting this whole thing through the Senate and the House. But he doesn't want to take that route for some reason. So people are confused.
You say for some reason. What he said is that he doesn't want people whose names are in the files because they were witnesses or they were sources for intelligence, for investigators, to be smeared as guilt by association, to have their names put out there. That's what Trump has said, because this Epstein issue has become so partisan, and so, you see how these emails came out. A couple of them came out. Trump is not sending the emails. They're emails about Trump, and be like, oh, this proves that he had sex with Bill Clinton or whatever.
Well, they said Bubba is not actually Bill Clinton now. That's the latest
Bubba
update.
Now?
They said Bubba was someone else. That's according to.
We don't know. It's selectively released emails that we're trying to parse for context. You see exactly why people will never be satisfied, and people are just trying to project bad, immoral, sexual behavior onto their enemies. That is what is going on. Like Trump says, it's all Democrats. Obviously, that's not true. Trump was friends with Epstein too 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It doesn't matter now. There's no evidence of wrongdoing. And I agree with him that we should try to move on once we have that information. And a lot of information is already out there. I don't know if it's on the Israel. So Ben Shapiro is mad at MTG first. MTG's been very principled on this. Some of Ben Shapiro, his commentary there seemed designed to protect Israel. Yes, it's true we've not been shown definitive evidence that Epstein was an intelligence asset for Israel or some other foreign government, but Ghislaine Maxwell's father was a British politician who is rumored to have been a triple spy, working for the Brits, the Soviets, and the Israelis. So there is a connection. It's never been borne out past that, but it's not a conspiracy theory to think that this is the reason he was protected.
Yeah, I think with Ben Shapiro, that I agree with that stance, but also I do agree with the fact that now the same people that were critical of Marjorie Taylor Greene are giving her like this ultimate pass to continue to come on and have dialogue without fully challenging her about a variety of things. They did a little bit on The View, but also like if
She's been challenged.
I mean, I think if they've been so critical of her for about 2 years straight now, consistently, I mean, to have her come on and be like, wow, you're saving the party. I mean, nothing that she's saying really aligns with where the Republicans are at. I mean, she's speaking out and kind of on her own and now getting completely isolated by the president. But that doesn't mean like a shared enemy, let's say, doesn't become a friend. Like, let's talk through some of these issues, because she's still obviously saying she doesn't agree with a lot of the ways that the Democrats are moving around, and she would never be a Democrat. So like, it's not like they're just welcoming her into the party, but I do think that they're just embracing her like some hero, when it's like, well, there's a right and a wrong way. Like, she sat down and met with and seen survivors, and maybe as a woman, her, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, who actually was a victim of sexual assault, saying, we're not going to take our names away from this bill, and we want to keep moving or from this discharge petition. And then you have the president kind of threatening these people at the same time,
Nancy
saying,
Mace
if you go
has
against
alleged
this.
she's a victim of all sorts.
Well, she alleges.
Walks around being victimized by everyone.
I'm keen to not dismiss her story unless I have the full context. And she said she's a sexual assault survivor.
Well.
But I think, even the beef between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump got remarkably like stiff in the last few days and uncomfortable. And it's like, why? Because is Epstein the biggest issue here? Or is it just because she said that she wants her district to have affordable health care? It seems very attacked and poignant. And even with Thomas Massie, he specifically is coming at the people who have brought up Epstein very religiously, and now coming at Thomas Massie for getting remarried after his wife passed away. It's disgusting rhetoric.
That was very cruel.
It's kind of like, well, why are you going this far over Epstein?
Yeah, it was terrible.
And so I think that that's something to be looked at, and why people are concerned with the president's response to this, when Thomas Massie is simply just following through on what he thinks is a good job.
I know Thomas Massie a little bit. He was devastated by his wife's sudden death, and he met someone, fell in love, got remarried. Good for him. Happy for him. I think it was vicious to try to smear him over that, as some of the Trump ally people are doing. We have to move on, so we probably don't have time for a larger conversation. But I don't take like the Me Too view that we should just believe every story that everyone says, right? You can show respect to people who claim to be victims of something, and you shouldn't dismiss them. And maybe we were too cavalier about just dismissing the claims of women or disadvantaged groups over time. I think we overcorrected for that a little bit during the Me Too era, and I like, people make sensation. It's not that women are liars or something, it's that everyone is a liar. Like, people lie, people misremember things, people exaggerate their amount of injury or grievance. So I don't.
But even if you're not
there were
supporting
millions
Massie,
of dollars at stake for some of these Epstein victims.
If you're not supporting Massie for anything else, just support him, because it'll go on your record that you went against releasing the Epstein files. So when President Trump is no longer in office, that's a stain you have to live with as you continue to have a leadership role in our government.
Right, I agree with that. But some of these victims got millions and millions and millions of dollars in settlements. So there's, when millions of dollars are at stake, people do lie or exaggerate all the time. So I have to be a little bit more scrutinizing of that, I think.
Next up, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro started singing Imagine as he was discussing tensions with the U.S. Don't go anywhere.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is getting torched on social media for singing John Lennon's Imagine while discussing tensions with the U.S.
Now, as Maduro is calling for peace, the Trump administration is ramping up its military presence near Venezuelan waters. Here's Maduro.
Hacer todo por la paz. Como decía John Lennon, ¿no? Alfred Nazaret, ¿cómo era la canción de John Lennon? Imagine us people. Mira, son jodedores, ¿vale? Qué canción tan bella. La letra, para las más jóvenes, busquen la letra. Es una inspiración para todos los tiempos, es un himno para todas las épocas y generaciones que dejó John Lennon como regalo a la humanidad. Que viva la memoria eterna de ese gran poeta y música, John Lennon.
Okay, boomer. Many reactions poured in on X. Political commentator and former Rising host Buck Sexton wrote, "Ironclad rule, the worst people in the world love John Lennon, and the very worst of all love Imagine." And National Review writer Jeff Behar wrote, was on the fence about overthrowing the regime, now fully committed.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration placed an aircraft carrier in the Caribbean this weekend and struck another alleged drug boat. Trump also said he wasn't ruling out troops on the ground in Venezuela. Here he was in the Oval Office yesterday.
I'm not in love with the people running Venezuela. I love Venezuela. I love the people of Venezuela. But what they've done to this country, and I really say this, what Biden and the Democrats have done to this country can never, ever be forgotten.
You suggested Maduro wants to talk. Are you prepared to speak with him directly? Would you commit to doing that before you order strikes?
Yeah, I probably would talk to him. Yeah, I talk to everybody.
Can we just start? What's the issue with Imagine? It's about love, unity.
Oh, no.
So I'm confused. I'm not understanding. Why are you saying, okay, boomer? Why is everybody so mad about it? What's wrong with that?
God.
Please break it down. Like, why is everybody so riled up about that song?
It's cringe. It's just very cringy. It's just like...
Our president does cringe things often.
No, he does funny things.
To you. I'm sure people... I watched this and saw this man singing and was like, okay.
Well, it's funny because it's so cringe.
I mean, I don't mind him trying to say he wants to bring peace to the world. That's a nice statement.
God.
And hopefully he and Trump will have a conversation
Let's
now.
hold hands and la 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 peace. It's no. No. Anyway, I think his days are numbered. It's fun, but I mean, the idea of this brutal dictator, someone who, again, suppresses dissent in his country to an alarming degree. There's no political rights and free speech, jails people who disagrees with him, seizes the assets of people, families he doesn't like, Chavez-style socialism has presided over Venezuela and destroyed its economy. At one point, Venezuela was, I think, the most prosperous country by GDP in South America, and now it is a badly performing economy. It's not a mystery what happened. Socialism is a very bad economic system. I don't know why they want to try to adopt it in New York City. That's another matter. It's very bad. It doesn't work. And in addition to it immiserating, causing poverty, it also requires brutal authoritarianism to function. So here's this guy, dictator, monster, saying, imagine there's no weapons. It's
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then I'm less concerned about what Maduro is doing. I mean, that's his business. But also, I'm concerned about our America First president that is blowing up ships that I've read from the New York Times had people that were not terrorists at all under this counterterrorism umbrella. And then even people like Rand Paul speaking up and saying, hey, let's go through Congress. I don't think this is a good idea. Both sides of the aisle saying there's a way to go about challenging Maduro. And we've seen how this historically looks for us to push U.S. interests on foreign soil. And we have examples of it failing miserably in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. So why would we try it in Venezuela just because we don't like the guy? We have a history of this. So that's my biggest concern.
Well, I share those concerns. I definitely don't want to start a war with Venezuela without proper constitutional authorization.
Next on Rising, I'll take a look at the immigration raids happening in Charlotte, North Carolina. Stick around for my lens.
All right, Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
I came back with a lot to discuss. So I've been thinking a lot about what's currently going on in Charlotte because it wasn't just another immigration operation. It was a political stress test, in my mind, dropped right into a purple state that both parties desperately need to win any federal election. According to the Department of Homeland Security, more than 130 people were arrested through Sunday, 81 in a single day, marking what immigration advocates called one of the largest sweeps in recent state history. By Monday, Border Patrol agents were spread across Charlotte, led by Gregory Bovino, the high-profile MAGA-aligned official who has carried out similar crackdowns in both Chicago and LA. Now, the New York Times reports that some of the people approached or arrested were hardly hiding in the shadows. A man helped with a church cleanup, workers at Home Depot, a landscaper hanging Christmas decorations, and even a, quote, Hispanic U.S. citizen whose truck window was shattered by an agent. What makes this moment different is where it happened. Mecklenburg County is one of North Carolina's biggest Democratic strongholds, but it's also a place where Trump made major gains in 2024, helped by improved support among, well, Latino voters. In 2020, exit polling suggested Biden won 57% of Latino voters to Trump's 42%. By 2024, the numbers tightened. Trump won half, while Kamala Harris only received 49%. That's a big shift. And even with the momentum of Trump winning the election, his policies are negatively affecting local Republican candidates. Candidates like Edwin Peacock III, who lost his citywide race a few weeks ago during the election by more than 40,000 votes as voters turned out in force to rebuke Trump. Edwin spoke to the Times about the current immigration crackdown and said, quote, "There's going to be a political response to this." He added that if people feel anything like they did on election day, quote, "I can assure you that it's not going to be a good night for anyone in the Republican Party if this kind of activity continues to haunt American cities." He's not wrong. When you bring a nationally televised crackdown into a city built and sustained by immigrant families, many from Latin America, you're not just enforcing policy, you're reshaping political coalitions. You're turning quiet neighborhoods into battlegrounds. And the polls back up why this moment is so delicate. A New York Times Siena poll this fall found that while a majority of voters support deporting people who are here illegally, they also believe Trump's methods go too far. Another Times poll in January found 87% of voters support deporting immigrants with criminal records, but that only drops to 55% when talking about removing all undocumented immigrants. Even Trump has shown some discomfort with sweeping workplace raids, pausing many earlier this year in agriculture, hospitality, and restaurant industries. So if the president hesitated on those raids, but the raids are now happening again, Charlotte becomes the test case for whether this strategy helps him or hurts his entire party. In a city that relies on immigrant labor, immigrant innovation, and immigrant families, casting a wide net doesn't just catch people, it catches consequences. If this weekend was the opening act of a consistent, tougher immigration posture heading into 2026 and 2028, then Charlotte might be the first place to show us something important. Immigration isn't just a policy fight, it's a political gamble. And in a purple state like North Carolina, one misstep can turn strategy into setback.
Well, look, I think the administration's immigration policies, like you point out, have been very extreme in some cases. Trump obviously ran on deporting a lot of immigrants, and there is major, in my view, public will to do something about illegal immigration. But does that mean there's, however, millions and millions of them here, 12 million or more? Does that mean every single one gets rounded up, or that we live in a police state to catch them all, even if they've been here for decades, even if they're working? I say no. Other people in MAGA disagree, but that's what they're working out, to what extent they're going to do that. And you're right that Trump himself has said, well, you know, we need people to build houses. We need people to pick crops. We need high-skilled immigrants. He was complaining to Laura Ingraham about exactly what I've complained about and you've complained about, that factory where they brought the South Koreans to build it, and he deported them. He said that was the stupidest thing ever. I was glad to hear him say that.
Because it was going to bring a ton of jobs. There's also, the farmers all over Pennsylvania that are saying scaring off immigrants is hurting them. So there's a lot of conversations about the same people that got Trump to the finish line in some of these states like Pennsylvania or even North Carolina. And just like in Georgia, I think North Carolina is one of those battleground states that people are really going to look at for the Senate midterm elections that are coming up next year, and going to say this is like a exact example of now having gone in North Carolina and how they respond to this behavior. Because a lot of people said this last election, which a lot of people won that were in Democratic cities or cities that go back and forth. So it wasn't as much of a blue tidal wave as it was just exaggerated for the news. They won and they were expected to win. Some people were upset in this last election 2 weeks ago. But when we look at the midterms, it's a more significant election to see about how many people that Democrats or Republicans have in these chambers, and then also what the election looks like, how much support the president has to continue forward with policies going into a major election where the president, I'm assuming, hopes that another Republican candidate can win. So these policies don't go without some type of rebuking or rebuttal, especially if people are feeling the same way they said they're feeling about things like the economy and the way that his policies are affecting them. So a lot of people are saying directly, like, well, no immigrants here is affecting our communities negatively, even though we would like the criminals to be removed. Even though we do think that people should not just come here willy-nilly, we don't think that you should be scaring people in the streets and arresting American citizens that might look Latino. That reminds me and is very reminiscent of stop and frisk, which we know was very uncomfortable failure of racial discrimination that took place in New York. And so it could go easily into that territory, and we've seen examples of it. And so that's the biggest thing, where you don't want to scare the same population that you touted did the last election came to the Republican Party in droves, in numbers that he was proud about and talked about, having people of color, people who were Latino voters voting for him, and now treating the same people and their family members in this community who are not criminals that way does not align with continuing to keep those people voting for you.
Right. I guess I wouldn't use, you keep saying scared or fear. I think that wouldn't be the way I would put it. I would say that no one, we're Americans, we're for liberty and freedom, and we want to be left alone. Nobody wants to be harassed by the government, whether it's the police, whether it's anybody, whether I hate, you know how much I hate the TSA. Stop touching me. Get away from me. This is pointless.
I don't mind the TSA. I want to feel safe on the plane. But we're not going to divert to that conversation.
Well, that's it. That's the attitude that I think is not, well, it's characteristic of you, and I'm sure it's characteristic of many people, but safety, security, and liberty are often in conflict. This is the philosophy that undergirds our entire Constitution, right? How much you can always have more safety and more security at the cost of liberty. We could require people to put on 2 seatbelts when they get in the car, right? It'd raise their safety a little bit, but it'd be really annoying. So how much do we require people? Do we infringe on people's rights in order to keep communities safe? So we could have more safety from illegal immigrants who commit crimes or anyone else, right? If we had cameras everywhere, if we had police on every street corner. Right now, we're like literally doing that experiment. In areas of D.C., there are National Guard troops everywhere. And guess what? There's less crime because there's National Guard troops everywhere. But I would argue that while I appreciate what they've done to bring down our staggering level of crime during the summer, it's not a permanent solution, or shouldn't be, to just have armed guards everywhere, to just have cameras watching us at all times so that we're good behaved citizens. That's not what we want. I don't think Latino communities, who also don't want illegal immigration and think that something should be done about illegal immigration, nor is it their top demand, by the way. It comes through in polling that Latinos are not specifically worked up about immigration policy or border policy in general. But you're right. If they're being overly policed in a stop and frisk type way, that will inspire backlash and discomfort, because nobody likes that. Nobody likes to be overly monitored or screened or watched or harassed by their government.
And that's why I think that North Carolina will be a specifically interesting place to watch, because that's a state that both parties will fight over, and really, truly one of the only states that's actually purple for the most part. Some states are pretty significantly either red or blue. And so he's testing out these policies in a place that, what he does right now will affect the next 3 or 4 years. And so we'll see. I think that what happens in 2026 there will be an indication for, even though I don't like to over-predict what will happen in 2028.
Yes, no more predictions from me, because I keep being wrong.
Still ahead, Trump indicating that he plans to sell F-35 fighter jets to the Saudis, while some in the Pentagon are warning against that move. Stay with us.
Democrats in Congress are blasting President Trump after he said that he would be open to selling cutting-edge F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia.
It comes as Saudi Arabia Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is expected to meet with Trump today in Washington, his first trip to the U.S. in 7 years. Here's what the president told or had to say about the potential sale yesterday.
Are you planning to sell F-35s to Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
And also, are you looking at doing a similar security agreement like you did with
Yeah, no, I am planning on doing that. Yeah.
You're going to
They
sell
want to buy.
F-35s?
They've been a great ally. They've got to like us very much. Look at the Iran situation, what we did in terms of obliterating, we obliterated their nuclear capability. Yeah, I will say that we will be doing that. We'll be selling F-35s. Yeah.
The Saudis have long been one of the biggest purchasers of American weapons, but according to the New York Times, a recent report from the Pentagon raised concerns over the sale of specific weapons like the F-35. The Defense Intelligence Agency suggested in that report that China may be able to access F-35 technology if we sold it to the Saudis, citing the security partnership between those two countries. Now, Pentagon officials have also raised concerns that the sale could compromise Israel's regional qualitative military edge, as right now they are the only country in the Middle East to have F-35s in their arsenal.
The potential deal sparked backlash online from President Trump's critics, with many suggesting that it may be a personal favor from the president. Democratic Senator Ed Markey wrote on X, quote, Trump says he will sell our most advanced fighter jets to the Saudis, who U.S. intelligence says killed journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. Looks like Saudi Arabia's billion-dollar business deals with the Trump family are paying off. This is outrageous. And Ron Flipkowski echoing that in his own post, writing, quote, this comes hours, weeks, and months after multiple deals were announced between the Saudi Global Wealth Fund and Trump Organization worth several $1 billion. The Saudis are one of the Trump family's biggest business partners.
Well, what do you think, Lindsey? I don't actually have a problem with this, and I think you probably do.
Well, I think that there's obvious red flags, right? So if China has a strong relationship with the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and they're the largest trading partner, like even more than the U.S. We have a strong relationship with Saudi Arabia. They are a larger trading partner, so they are more of an ally, you could say. And officials who deal in this more often than our president are saying or recommending that this is not the best way. Even past officials that go on TV like, oh, this is not a good way. Trump tried this in 2020. Biden canceled it when he became president. And so this is like a back and forth.
Because everything went so well in terms of the Middle East policy during the Biden.
I'm just telling you, he tried to sell them jets in 2020 and Biden paused that deal. And so when you think about it, there is some conflict of interest there. So, you know, the Trump organization is in, and Trump says it's his sons, it's not him, but they're in talks to bring a Trump branded property to one of Saudi Arabia's largest government owned real estate developments right now as we speak. So that would be blurring the line. Well, I mean, the chief executive in Saudi of the Saudi company is leading the entire transition, and that's actually happening.
Places are developing, wanting to become more friendly to the West, wanting to do business deals with the president, both in his personal capacity and just with the U.S. in general. I mean, you were just in Qatar seeing the results of a more fruitful relationship between them and us. I think
people
this is good. I think if Israel is mad about it because now we don't have unquestioned air superiority, I'm like, well, you should do what we want then. You should be a better ally to us in terms of what your government is doing in Gaza. So I don't think that should be some kind of, you know, check on what we're allowed to do. Furthermore, I want to have a better relationship with Saudi Arabia. I don't want to be stuck in some kind of war on terror mindset. And if we're getting something from this, then I don't really have a problem with it.
Well, just
now, maybe we're not getting anything. Maybe we shouldn't be listening to them, or we shouldn't be trusting them. They're still working against us. I'm open to those arguments. But the idea of us, and we already sell them weapons.
Well, this is an early conversation.
We're selling them. They're buying the weapons.
But just to be clear, this is an open conversation about how the U.S. will work alongside Saudi Arabia. Not that they don't have a relationship at all. They're not agreeing to anything in regards to whatever would be exchanged for these F-35 jets until the U.S. explicitly agrees that there should be a two-state solution, Palestinian state recognized. Right. And I don't know that the
maybe
U.S.
they should agree to take some of the
Palestinians.
Palestinians.
Well, that is a very valid thing to say, but I also think that they're saying if you recognize two states, and so for the U.S. to take that firm stance, which hasn't been done historically, would be something where a lot of people who support Israel would raise an eyebrow because they don't want that outcome. But the rest of the world, including the UN, is saying that might be the only or the best way forward. Right. And so I think the president, as much as he has possible business dealings and relationships with Saudi Arabia, and possibly innocently wants to open up this dialogue between two countries, he still needs to figure out what he's saying. No, the president never said. No, the president never said he wants a two-state solution.
Well, we can't have one of the states be controlled by Hamas, which would be the case. So that's why there can't be a two-state solution.
Israel doesn't want a two-state solution, and that's our ally. So how do you respond to that? That's what I mean.
Well, we should tell them tough luck.
But we have not told Israel tough luck this entire time.
Well, I don't know that Israel's government has said many different things, and maybe we shouldn't believe them. They're open. They say they're open to Palestinian. I mean, they gave Palestine self-determination. They pulled out of overseeing Gaza, and then what happened is immediately a terrorist group took control of it, and no one wants Hamas governing the area. I don't think Israel wants to govern the area itself. Now, Israel's government is far too willing to let everyone in Gaza die and then take it over, but they don't want to actually govern the Palestinians. They want the Palestinians gone or dead. But again, they being Benjamin Netanyahu, not Israel or the Israeli people. Many of them want to live in peace with their neighbors, and it would be ideal if they just had a sane government running them, but they have a terrorist group.
Well, I think that's what we have to address, the elephant in the room, because a lot of people feel that our American policies are much different than Middle Eastern policies. The reason why the Saudi leader hasn't been here in 7 years is very obvious because of alleged human rights violations. And so that's why he hasn't visited the United States until right now. And so coupling all that when we're trying to tell people exactly how to lead from this honorable way and how, and it's like who should be in leadership, I feel like that's an odd place for the president to stand as somebody who has almost blindly supported Netanyahu besides here and there, but then also has been looked at past administrations that have been critical of Middle Eastern policy.
They've all
and then
got
also is trying to
human
respond.
rights violations. They're all.
But I'm letting you know where he stands. So anything that he does, people should be critical of. And if he closes an eye or bats a blind eye to what's going on in the Middle East because he has business deals, and that's something to consider as well. Because that would be almost like a violation of what
we don't have the luxury
of
only doing business with people who have no human rights violations, because there aren't any of them, right? It would just be us and like Switzerland hanging out, being buds, or New Zealand, which are great countries, but there are a lot of human rights violations of all these regimes, from Israel itself, Saudi Arabia, all these people. So we can't, we can't take like the neocon isolationist view that all morally flawed governments need to be overthrown immediately, because we would just be, we don't have the firepower to do. We don't want to do interventions.
And I think naturally our job is to question the timing and the relationship and the why of it. If it's genuinely because you feel like he wants to do a better job than Biden with bringing profitable relationships to the U.S., fine. But if you look at it and say, oh, you're building a Trump Tower right over there in Saudi Arabia, backed by the government, same time you're giving them access to fighter jets that China could possibly get their hands on and understand our technology way more than we would be comfortable with them doing. Both of those are fair reviews of what the administration is doing. I don't think you should dismiss one just because you feel that the president has good intentions. It's not about feeling. It's about what history will tell us about all of his international relationships.
Well, up next, Bill Ackman getting roasted for his pickup line advice for young men. We'll be right back after this. Billionaire Bill Ackman is getting brutally roasted on X for his dating advice.
Ackman said he has heard from many young men that it's hard to meet young women in public nowadays. He said the destruction of spontaneous interactions were a result of online culture.
Ackman then wrote this: as such, I thought I would share a few words that I used in my youth to meet someone that I found compelling. I would ask, may I meet you? Before engaging further in a conversation, I almost never got a no. It inevitably enabled the opportunity for a further conversation. I met a lot of really interesting people this way. I think the combination of proper grammar and politeness was the key to its effectiveness. You might give it a try. Just 2 cents from an older, happily married guy concerned about our next generation's happiness and population replacement rates.
Now, a flurry of memes and roasting ensued.
That was controversial, what he just said.
May I meet you?
Okay, go ahead.
John Wang, head of crypto at the company Kalshi, wrote on X, quote, may I meet you as a pickup line is some crazy unk advice. And podcaster and businesswoman Aubrey Strobel wrote, quote, men don't open with may I meet you. It's not going to work.
Okay. Others gave Ackman some credit, albeit not really, for his pickup line advice. The Economist Wall Street editor wrote on X, one thing that I think that's underappreciated about Ackman, love him or hate him, is that he's a true conductor of the discourse. He's calling the tunes. You might consider yourself a good poster. Maybe you're even the principal cellist. He's playing the orchestra. What is wrong with this?
This is like,
may I meet you?
Okay, you have a problem with somebody singing Imagine, but you don't have a problem with old man telling somebody that you should.
Well, not as an old man.
May I meet you?
He did this in.
Okay, so I'd like to see you in your single day
day
walking up to the bar like, may I meet you? Or like texting somebody, may I meet you? Like that's like somebody walking up to me and saying, good afternoon, queen. I hate that. Good afternoon, king.
Well,
like that's ridiculous. And also his advice saying, oh, may I meet you? It's like, are you meeting somebody and then coming up there with your flashy Rolex and saying, may I meet you? Then maybe you're getting yeses because you're a billionaire? Or were you just saying, may I meet you with your sweatsuit on? Like, I just feel like, what is his advice actually valid? May I meet you?
Well, spoiler, in my very brief single phase, I absolutely, when messaging with people on social media or something, you ask very quickly for a date, a get-together, or whatever, and it works.
So he just hates online dating, which I would think from you, I would think you would be like, yo,
maybe
what's wrong with
women,
online dating? What's wrong with I know people who got married from eHarmony, people who...
To take this a little bit more seriously, there is a an idea out there among young men that I'm gathering who would like to date, would like to meet a nice girl, like to start a family, like to settle down, like to do those kinds of things. And I have a lot of single male friends, single female friends. They don't all get together. I think that'd be great. It doesn't happen. Something has gone wrong in our like dating discourse or whatever. And I think there is a fear that maybe that the men have about approaching women now in, you're gonna hate me for saying this. It's a little bit of like wokeness, Me Too, excess that like if you look at a woman wrong, you're gonna have that as a black mark against you. Like,
you think the guys are worried
write
about
a tell-all and be like, oh, I felt so violated by him asking whether he could meet me.
Well, since I have...
They all have that in the back of their head.
I have a variety of different walks of life girlfriends that are on these dating apps, and I hear the stories back. I'm not getting any feedback about men being afraid to say pretty much anything or send pretty much anything. So the advice of taking it off the app maybe is a good advice because I think people are losing the connection. I like random spur-of-the-moment interactions that lead to some love story. I'm dramatic in that way. I love when people just happen to meet at the same park or at the same restaurant. I think it's lovely. Now, if you happen to meet on an app, that's fine, but maybe the connection happens in real life. But there's a lot of chatting that goes back and forth on the app. So if he's saying, like, let's get to meet each other right away, that's great. But then some people are trying to get to meet right away for some other reasons that are not ideal for some women that are just trying to get to know people via chatting and talking on the phone.
Apps are good, but you don't do any of that. I don't know. You used to go to the bar with your friends, and the girls are there with their friends, and the guys talk to the girls, and you meet somebody you like, and then you're gonna like. Does that happen anymore? There's an idea that that's not happening anymore. I don't know if it's actually not happening anymore, but that's what Bill Ackman here is trying to counter. So he's just encouraging the dudes to be a little bit more straightforward with the women, and he says that works, or maybe it only works if you're a billionaire.
Does that mean to actually go in the bar and say, may I meet you after you're already seeing somebody, or say, may I meet you on an app?
If you're actually talking to someone, may I meet you would be weird.
It's
You're
awkward,
meeting them.
yes.
It's happening. But, I met my fiance in a bar, actually. So,
Oh, in person, in real life?
Yeah.
Oh, I met Colin at the club.
there you go.
And so in real life.
So may we meet you? It works.
He did say, may I meet you? For breakfast. We got breakfast today.
There you go.
So I guess that works when you're in real life too.
That's all the dating advice we have for you today on Rising, but look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way in a little bit, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so that you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can get your podcast fix. See you later.